Hey y'all, I hope you guys are having a good day so far. You don't know me and that's okay. My name's Jeremy, and I've decided to start a blog of sorts. What better place to upload my chronicles of life than here, right? Well, I hope I made the right decision. I suppose I should get introductions out of the way then. I'm your typical college student hoping to get a degree in a field I'll likely never approach in my career. You know, the usual, I figured I'd save a bit of cash and register for courses at my local community college, and that seems to have been the right move. Now I'm writing my way through school on grant money and loads of coffee. Sounds fun, right? I used to romanticize college life back in the day. I'd picture myself as a kid living on campus, attending parties, and finding the love of my life. Fueled by ramen and espresso, I would stay up late at night studying, followed by a session of gaming with my pals. Needless to say, this idealized version of higher education is far removed from my current reality. Shit, I hardly even know what my campus looks like. I take all of my classes virtually, which entails that I sit behind a computer screen for hours, listening to the droning voice of my instructors as they give their lectures. If you ask me, it's a total drag. I knew I should have taken a gap year. I find it ironic how, as children, we can't wait to grow up. When we look at adults, we see these big, strong people who can do as they please. They can eat what they want, sleep when they want, and seem to have many privileges in comparison to their adolescent counterparts. This naivety dissipates, however, as the burden of responsibility sets upon us all with the passage of time. I've come to miss the freedom I once had as a kid. Luckily, I've kept a few of my treasured items from the past. Earlier today, I looked through my attic until I found them. Tucked in the corner of a room sat a few cardboard boxes. I took them downstairs and traced my hand along the dusty surface before opening the flaps and peeking inside. I sifted through a pile of clothes I used to wear, pressing an old shirt against my cheek. I chuckled at how small I used to be. Tossing it aside, I continued rummaging through the various items in the box. Near the bottom sat a black digital camera. Lifting it up, and I inspected its surface. It, just like everything else in the box, hadn't been touched in years. My curiosity had been sparked, and after swapping out its batteries, I looked through the images it held. A photograph is like putting time inside a bottle. We capture a moment and store it, and can view that moment years down the road. As humans, our memories can fail us, but a photograph will always present things as they were. Isn't it such a cool concept? I grinned ear to ear as I saw the small child I used to be. There must have been dozens of photos of me in that little device. A flood of memories came back whilst I viewed the images. One photo depicted me swimming in a lake located just a few miles away from my childhood home. Another showed me grinning with glee as I swung on a tire bound to a tree by rope. Right, the tire swing was on the playground at my former elementary school. I must have spent quite some time reminiscing until I stumbled upon an odd photo. There I was, standing there. I looked as disinterested as could be. Rather than carrying my typical smile, I held a frown on my face. I wouldn't have thought much of it had the next photos not been as equally as strange. Between them all, the expression on my face remained consistent. Finally, as I neared the end of my camera roll, I stumbled upon a photo of another child. Although I couldn't recognize him, a sense of familiarity washed over me when I viewed the image. I knew I'd seen his face somewhere before. His bright blonde hair and pearly white smile stood in stark contrast with my brooding appearance just a few photos back. There weren't many notable photos following that one, so I put the camera away and continued my nostalgia trip. I remember my heart skipping a beat as I found the white pouch slouched against the edge of the box. I hastily picked it up and unzipped it. Slipping my hand inside, I pulled out the blue Nintendo DS, DSi in particular, and stared at it in awe. Grabbing the power cord and plugging it into the wall, I connected it to my DS and pressed the power button. My eyes sparkled with glee as the screen lit up and displayed the signature Nintendo DS logo, before promptly taking me to the home screen. If you're a 2000s kids, you know how fun these things were. Hell, I bet we all share memories of staying up late, watching the faint glow of the screen as we played our favorite games. I fiddled around with the keypad a bit, scrolling through the page and observing the applications, noticing there were no games displayed on the home screen. I turned the device around and glanced at the back. There was no game cartridge plugged in. Frustrated, I sighed and set the DS down, ready to explore through the box further. That is, until I got the idea to look deeper into the white bag. Upon further inspection, I realized it held a single game within it. The chip lacked any art of title, so I couldn't tell what exactly the game was. Shrugging, I pushed it into the cartridge holder of the DS until I heard a click. Finally, I was presented with the game on the home screen. The title read, Township Village. Holy shit. My jaw dropped as soon as I read the title. It had been years since I even thought about that game, let alone played it. I clicked on the application instantly, waiting as the game loaded. Finally, I was presented with the title screen, as well as the old save files contained within the game. For those who don't know, the game closely resembles the Animal Crossing franchise. You get to build and maintain towns in a fantasy world. Once the game loaded, I was spawned inside of a house. A header at the top of the screen swung down, the words Darth_Jeremy house inscribed into it. I hung my head down, cringing. The glory of a child's imagination, am I right? I looked around the room I was in. I seriously lacked any sense of home decor as a child. Paintings were framed all across the walls of my room, giving it the appearance of a cluttered mess. I made my way over to the dresser near my bed. I clicked on it, causing the drawer to open, revealing a stash of items inside. An apple, a magnet, 50 gold, and a journal all laid within the drawer. I selected them all and put them inside the character's pouch. Opening my inventory, I scrolled down and selected the journal. Right, so one of the primary mechanics of the game is the ability to jot down notes in in-game journals. I had totally forgotten about that. I was so giddy to read through the ramblings of a kid without a care in the world. I played with Mr. O today. I showed him my drawings from school, and he really liked them. He said I did a good job, and even gave me a cookie. He told me he would love to see my drawings I do next. Mr. O? Maybe he was an old teacher of mine. I couldn't remember, so I shrugged and exited the journal. Leaving my room and making my way downstairs, I traversed the rest of the house, inspecting each area I came across. Eventually, I found the second bedroom of the house. As I entered, another header dropped down from the top of the screen, displaying the words, Mr. O's room. I paused. Inside stood another character. He towered over me, and he turned to face me as I entered. His head lacked hair, and he was dressed in a plain white tee and blue jeans. Resuming, I approached him. A large grin adorned his unmoving face. Deciding to chat with him, I clicked on his character, but he said nothing. The rest of his area was barren, save for a single door at the opposite end of the room. I entered it, revealing a bathroom. A silhouette stood in the tub, behind the shower curtain. Approaching it, I pulled back the curtain to reveal a second Mr. O. He simply stood there, sporting his same smile. Once more, I clicked on his character to open his dialogue. He merely said, "Don't forget to scrub your back," and nothing more. His eyes watched me closely, seemingly following me no matter where I was. I opted to close the shower curtain and exit the room. I admit, it was weird as shit for him to be in there. Then again, it wouldn't be implausible for me to have placed him there as some kind of gag as a child. You know how stupid and random a child's humor can be. Still, I couldn't seem to recall who he was. It took me a bit more searching to figure out why that character was in my house. An in-game computer sat at the dining room table, and inspecting it revealed a character creation option. I was able to create and insert characters into my world as I pleased. Selecting the character creation option revealed that I had only created Mr. O. It was just him and I in this world, alone. Exiting the computer and turning around, I was shocked to see Mr. O standing behind me, mere pixels away from my character. As I backed away, his body stayed perfectly still, only moving his head to keep his watchful gaze fixated upon me. I stepped out of my house and roamed around the town. Not a single soul was in sight. I followed the dirt trail through the town until I reached the house on the edge of the woods. Every house up to that point had been empty, but I figured it wouldn't be too much trouble to search through one more. As I entered, I was surprised to discover that it was filled with furniture and appliances. Even more shocking, however, was that I found the home to be fully occupied. A familiar man stood in every corner of the house, watching me. What the fuck? Who was this guy? I couldn't remember for the life of me. I made my way around the house anyway, exploring the various drawers and cupboards sitting around. In one such cupboard sat a journal. I placed it in my inventory once more and opened it. Remember, Jeremy, it's just you and me here. Love, Mr. O. That didn't seem consistent with my writing style as a child. I'm not sure what to make of that. I set my DS aside and got up, a sense of confusion washing over me. I'd expected to find the incoherent ramblings of a kid in those journals. Instead, I was greeted with a rather ominous notes left about in a desolate world. Well, an almost desolate world. I decided to simply shove my confusion to the back of my mind and continued going through the box. I was ecstatic to find a bunch of my old drawings. My artistic ability hadn't developed past making stick figures, but hey, I was just a kid. Every crude drawing I found elicited a smirk from me, though I did find one in particular that stood out from the rest. I had drawn myself holding hands with a man. He was tall, and I had scribbled a pair of blue jeans and a white tee over his figure. A large smile had been plastered across his face. It was him, alright. Maybe Mr. O was an imaginary friend of mine? I really don't have another explanation for it, though it is strange that I can't seem to recall him, nor can I remember writing those notes down in my game. I'll have to ask my mother about him when she gets home from work this evening. Maybe she'll know what this is all about. Oh right, and that kid in the photograph. I'll have to ask her about him too. I'll be sure to write you all again after I chat with her about it. Until then, you guys take care. Hey guys, thanks for checking back in with the blog. I'm glad to have received a few upvotes here and there, and it's nice having my humble little corner on the internet. As I promised in my last post, I was able to ask my mom a few questions regarding the photographs. For starters, she was able to identify the blonde kid I couldn't recognize. His name was Sam, and I used to be friends with him in elementary school. Unfortunately, this information didn't clarify much for me. I can't recall having been friends with a kid named Sam in school. I chalked it up to my memory failing me. I asked her about Mr. O, and upon doing this, so I could have sworn I saw her smile fade a bit. She relaxed back into her seat and looked upward towards the ceiling, pondering for a while. Before I could ask her what she was thinking, she abruptly looked me eye to eye and told me he was an imaginary friend of mine, confirming my suspicions. She offered me a grin and explained how she would often catch me in my room, murmuring to myself about the numerous adventures Mr. O and I had gone on. Curious, I asked her whether she could recall what adventures. In particular, I claimed to go on with Mr. O, but all she could offer me was a shrug. I nudged her a bit as to why I appeared unhappy in the last couple of photos. She told me that sometimes as a child there were days where I didn't seem to have my spark, as she put it. It was never much of a concern to her. Kids can be quite moody. Once more, this left me slightly confused because, for the most part, I recall having been a pretty happy kid. Still, it isn't abnormal for us to forget certain things, especially when they happened years ago. At that point, she yawned and headed to bed. She's got quite a busy work week, so I didn't prod any further. I can't imagine the stress she must endure as a single mother. Following in her footsteps, I made my way to my bedroom and laid down on the bed. Extending my hand out to the right, I snatched up the DS sitting on my nightstand. After a long day of work and school, I figured I would treat myself to some more nostalgia. In truth, I wanted to explore my world in Township Village a bit more. So as I witnessed the faint glow of the DS screen, I spam-clicked my way through the main menu and hastily opened the application. The typical intro played, and I selected my last save file, where I resumed my journey. Traveling down the bare road to the edge of the town, I decided to exit the area and explore the rest of the world. My character made his way past the perimeter of the town, following the path which continuously stretched across the screen. Deciding to turn the volume up a bit, I took in the various sounds of the game. The birds chirped softly in the background, and the wind blew quietly throughout the area. I nodded my head to the tune of a gentle melody provided by the game's soundtrack. That's when I noticed it. Not only could I hear my footsteps, but footsteps that marched in a pattern that was incongruent with my own. I stopped walking, and the second pair of footsteps ceased shortly after. Turning around and approaching the origin of the strange noise, I was met with the image of Mr. O standing perfectly still. He didn't speak a word to me. He simply gazed upon my character, never blinking, not once glancing away. Mr. O would continue following me down the trail. Upon reaching a clearing, I noticed a tree standing in the distance, a tire bound to one of its branches with a rope. Beyond that was the school I remember attending. The yard and blacktop in front of it were empty. I discovered that the same could be said of the corridors as I entered the school, wandering through its hallways. Most of the classrooms were nondescript. A few that I entered have been titled with the names of teachers I remember having. Miss Martin's room contained a row of seats in front of the big whiteboard. Mr. Adams' room had a large multicolored rug in the center where backpacks and notebooks were lazily strewn about. I really did spend an inordinate amount of time on this game. Not only had I built a town with several houses, but a replica of my school too. Well, as close to a replica as my young mind could create. I was no architect, so the school was depicted inaccurately. As I left the classroom, I heard the second pair of footsteps trailing me once more. I suppose this Mr. O model was a companion character of sorts. I'll have to find a way to make him stop following me. It's beginning to become bothersome. I explored the gymnasium where two basketball hoops stood opposite to each other. Memories of me dashing around on the court, trying to score against my classmates came flooding back. Then I explored the cafeteria where not so grand memories of my tray being filled with slop put a damper on my mood. Towards the end of the hall stood an unmarked classroom. Entering it, I found that it contained a single desk in the middle of the room. There was a piece of paper sitting on the desk serving as a name tag. Jeremy L. Why exactly was my desk here? There was nothing else in the room, and the room itself wasn't named after a former teacher of mine. I walked back to the door, ready to leave. Only, I couldn't. The door was locked from outside. I tried opening it multiple times, but to no avail. The only other exit appeared to be another door on the opposite end of where I stood. When I walked through it, I found myself standing in one of those in-classroom restrooms. I wasn't alone. He stood there, towering over my character as always. That same grin was still plastered on his face, and his eyes never stopped tracking my movements. I wasn't sure how I was going to leave the classroom. When I tried exiting the bathroom, I found that the door wouldn't budge. It had been locked shut from the outside as well. I turned, facing the tall man standing before me. Approaching him, I clicked on his character, causing the screen to fade to black. When the screen regained its color and I was reintroduced to my surroundings, Mr. L was gone and the bathroom door was left wide open. All that remained was a bag sitting on the bathroom sink. Opening it, I found a note inside, accompanied by a cookie. Thank you, Jeremy. Remember, Mr. O loves you. Exiting the restroom, I made my way to the other door. It was left wide open as well. As I made my way down the halls, I didn't hear a second pair of footsteps. I didn't hear anything at all. No birds, no music, just the sound of my character marching down the marble floor. There was only one room I hadn't yet explored. Attempting to open the door revealed it to be locked. There was, however, a sign posted next to it. Reading the sign revealed the name written in bold black ink, Mr. O. At this point, I'm left scratching my head more than anything. Sure, every child loves their imaginary friend, however, this all seemed a bit much. Also, I can't explain a few aspects of the gameplay, and it's been bothering me. Mr. O is a customizable character that was created for my world. This means that my interactions with him are not pre-programmed into the game. They were programmed after Mr. O was created and inserted into the world. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine myself coding such complex interactions into this game as a small child. I know damn well it wasn't my mother either, bless her heart, but she's about as proficient with technology as a snake is with flying. Trust me, I spent hours trying to teach her how to send an email. I chose to put the game down and hop on my computer. At that point, the blue light was all that kept me from passing out. Despite my drowsiness, I was able to Google Township Village for the Nintendo DS. I found nothing. Not a single seller of the game on eBay or Amazon. Not even an obscure forum post about the game on Reddit or Quora. Either this was a highly unknown game, or it was a completely original copy altogether. Now that I think about this, I don't remember how I got my hands on this game in the first place. Not wanting to get up and knock on her bedroom door, I texted my mom, asking her whether she knew how I got the game. She told me she had no idea where I got it, and always assumed that one of my childhood friends gifted it to me. I simply started playing it one day, remembering that Sam fellow she had mentioned earlier. I asked her if she had his contact information. Sadly, she didn't. He hadn't been in contact with our family for ages. I guess it was a long shot, but it was still worth the attempt. After all, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I plugged my charger cable into the DS and set it back on the nightstand. I'll play with it some more tomorrow after I finish with my schoolwork. That was meant to be the end of my latest entry, but I honestly can't fall asleep. I'm just laying here, staring up at the ceiling. I've been unable to push my concerns to the back of my mind. If I didn't program those interactions into the game and my mother didn't, then who did? My eyes keep darting towards the DS. I couldn't have been the only one that's played that game. Reopening my laptop, I typed out a forum post, asking if anyone else has heard of Township Village, let alone played it. If any of you reading this have any information on this game, please let me know. I'm trying not to lose that much sleep over all this, so it would bring me great comfort to know that others know about this. Hell, for all I know, I've stumbled upon a forgotten piece of video game media. Talk about buried treasure. I think I'm finally getting tired enough to fall asleep, so I'll probably end this here. Thanks to everyone who's been reading up to this point. I greatly appreciate it. Tomorrow I'll explore other parts of the world to see what other towns I may have built. Maybe I'll also find some answers regarding the origins of the game, as well as who may have tampered with its programming. I'm also certain that I'm not the only person to have laid hands on it. I just wish I could remember who else may have handled my DS all those years ago. Alright, first things first. My mother confronted me earlier. She had some questions regarding what reminded me of Mr. O. She found it peculiar I had remembered a person I hadn't spoken of for years, but she initially forgot to ask me about it due to her fatigue after a long day of work. I told her about the drawing I found in the cardboard box. I neglected to mention that he was omnipresent within the game. However, I'm not exactly sure why I omitted that information. It was as if the mere thought of doing so cultivated a strong reaction deep inside my gut. The best way I can describe it is the sensation that washes over us when we do something we aren't supposed to do as a kid, such as sticking our fingers into the cookie jar. She accepted my explanation, yet she seemed wary about the whole thing. She continually asked me what I remembered about Mr. O, but I repeatedly told her I remembered nothing about him, reminding her that I was the one who asked her about Mr. O first, signifying my lack of knowledge on the subject. She nodded her head in agreement. She's been acting very strangely in regards to this entire situation. I inquired about her odd reaction to Mr. O, and she simply shook her head and chuckled to herself. Her laugh wasn't very convincing. The usual energy in her eyes appeared drained, and subtle rings circled them. It was clear to me that she hadn't been sleeping well. According to her, it had been deflating listening to me constantly ramble about my imaginary friend. She smirked slightly and expressed disapproval of me mentioning him at all, remarking that it might be best to forget him altogether. Ironic, considering she was the one that brought him up this time. Her smile was, once again, not convincing in the slightest. To the commenter on my last post, I'm greatly sorry that you also live in a single-parent household. I understand all too well how difficult that could be. On the flip side, I'm glad my post can connect with people in a way that they can relate to. It invokes a kind of communal feeling, don't you think? No worries about asking what happened to my father. By the way, I'm more than comfortable divulging that information. My father passed away when I was very young. I had no concept of death or loss at that time, so from my perspective, he was just there one day and gone the next. He had taken his own life, but I couldn't quite grasp the gravity of the situation back then. I recall seeing my mother look utterly devastated each day. Sometimes I could even hear her weeping at night alone in her bedroom. Even if I couldn't fully understand what was happening, I knew something was wrong. I would try and comfort my mother, embracing her every time she appeared to be upset. She appreciated my efforts, I'm sure of it. Even today, the feeling of her returning my hug and fruitlessly trying to suppress her tears is one I could recollect vividly. There are some other things I would like to cover in this entry. I know I said I would explore the game further today, but I have decided against it. I apologize, but you see, I dreamt of him last night. Mr. O appeared before me, his formidable stature casting a dark shadow over my petite frame. I looked up at him, arching my neck to view his face. His grin was as wide as could be as he stared down at me. His eyes seemingly bulged out from his sockets, the veins surrounding them protruding through his skin. He methodically set one foot in front of the other, approaching me. Instead of backing away, I inexplicably reciprocated his advancement. When I was close enough for him to reach out and grab me, he did just that. He firmly gripped my arm, pulling me closer to him. At that moment, I realized a strong sense of raw terror was brewing within me. I finally snapped out of my daze and began to struggle. As I squirmed and attempted to wriggle free of his grasp, he only clenched my arm tighter. I began grunting as panic set in. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I struggled to free myself from his grip. All the while, he kept his eyes on me, his glare seemingly burning into my soul. I only paused when I felt his palm violently strike my cheek. I stood motionless as he bent down and positioned his face directly in front of me. He maintained that signature shit-eating grin, even while his tongue slid out from his parted lips. I helplessly observed as he licked his lips, and at that very moment, my eyes met with his. In them, I saw pure, unadulterated hunger. He then proceeded to speak to me. He didn't say much, only uttering a single sentence while keeping his sights directly on me. Jeremy, I love you. Jeremy, I will always love you. Jeremy. He stopped and his grin grew impossibly wide. As his lips curled past his ears, the skin around his mouth tore open, and a sickening crack could be heard while his jaw adjusted to his new, deformed smile. He repeated those words to me again, and again, and again. Jeremy, I love you, Jeremy. I will always love you, Jeremy. As he repeated those words, no longer did they only originate from him. They echoed throughout the room surrounding us. He began slowly pulling me towards his gaping maw. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I could only watch in horror as this man lifted my tiny body off the ground, bringing me closer and closer to his mouth. I caught a final glimpse of his eyes. The hunger they contained had grown exponentially. Those wide eyes full of childlike, giddy excitement were the last things I saw before I was enveloped by complete darkness. No longer did I try to free myself from my predicament. I just sat there, waiting for it all to be over as Mr. O consumed me whole. Jeremy, I love you, Jeremy. I will always love you, Jeremy. The words had stopped echoing throughout the room. Instead, they bounced around in my mind. The darkness was so complete that I couldn't even see my hands, but I could feel them. I felt them tugging at my hair and digging into my scalp. I was doing all that I could to distract myself from the repetitive, monotonous voice within my head. It only grew louder. As I rejected it, the voice grew more frustrated. The words that it spoke sounded like they were said through the gritted teeth of an angry, impatient man. I begged for it to stop. I cried out into the darkness, my voice quivering. I told it that I would do anything it wanted if only it would stop. Then, it ceased altogether. I sat there in silence, alone in whatever dark pit contained me. The sound of footsteps gradually approached. There was a presence behind me, but I didn't dare turn my head around. Someone placed a large hand on my shoulder, gently caressing it. The owner of that hand spoke. "If you ever want something, all you have to do is ask," said the voice. He leaned forward and positioned his lips near my ear. "Remember, Jeremy, I love you." It was then that I launched upright in my bed, my forehead drenched in sweat. My breathing had taken the form of short gasps for air. Looking down, I even noticed that my palms tightly gripped the sheets. I didn't sleep a wink after that. Rather, I paced the perimeter of my room, thinking about what the hell just happened. Needless to say, if the game is causing me to have graphic nightmares, it's probably best I take a break from it. This is especially true if it interrupts my sleep schedule. I don't have time to take nap during the daytime, so yeah, sorry about this. There won't be any game updates today. However, that isn't to say I didn't explore the rest of the DS. There were still a plethora of other applications to go through, and I was quite intrigued by a few of them. I essentially held a time capsule in my fingertips, and I was not going to waste that opportunity. The application that sparked my interest the most was the camera. I wonder what kind of photos I took back then. I clicked on the camera icon and I was brought to a gallery of images. A lot of the photos were a blurry, unfocused jumble of pixels. I suppose my photography skills as a kid weren't quite as developed as they could have been. Other pictures contained various items like my backpack or my Hot Wheels race car track. I scrolled through more of the images. Photos of trees, schoolyard equipment, and awkward selfies littered the camera roll. Of course, most of these photos were nonsensical, but that was a part of the magic of it all. It was relieving to take a break from my organized world and revisit one where nothing really mattered. There were a few photos that sparked my interest more than the rest. They were photos of me. I didn't recognize the background of the images. The walls behind me were blank coated with white paint. I wasn't smiling in any of the photos. I stood against the wall I was looking upwards. The camera had been angled downwards to take my picture. The position of the photographer assumed was several feet above my head, meaning no child could have taken those images. As I scrolled further through the camera roll, I realized my face had begun to warp into that of an unsettled child. In some of the photos, I even noticed that my cheeks had been faintly colored red. It was as if I was crying before the photo was taken. There were no photos in the camera roll following that. I'm at a loss for words at this point. I don't know where those photos were taken, nor do I know who took them in the first place. How is it that I could exactly pinpoint the locations of the images on the black camera, yet not recall the context of the pictures I just viewed? It just doesn't make sense to me. There has to be a reasonable explanation for it. Maybe I was at an aunt or uncle's house and they took these photos? Then why did I appear to be as upset as I was? Do you remember the feeling I described to you all earlier? The one I experienced at the thought of telling my mother about Mr. O being inside my game? The same feeling arose when I thought about asking her about those photos. It was the same sinking feeling in my gut. Deep down, I sense I have a strong aversion to being confronted about what's going on my DS. I guess it's strange this feeling doesn't arise as I write to you all. I'm not sure why that is, though I feel as if it has something to do with the indirect nature of a blog. Whatever the case may be, I need an explanation, but it's as if I can't bring myself to seek one from her. Still, it isn't like there are many other sources to find one. There haven't been any responses to my forum thread. I know it hasn't been that long since I uploaded it, but I'm growing impatient nonetheless. This Mr. O guy is invading my dreams. He's invading my memorabilia. Why is he everywhere? I'm not a particularly superstitious person, sure. I believe there may be something out there that can't be explained by our natural world, but at this point, I don't know how to explain all of this. This imaginary friend of mine doesn't seem quite as imaginary as I first understood him to be. I know that sounds crazy, but I can't think of many alternative explanations. I'll keep you guys updated. Thank you for your time. I'd like to clarify something I said in my last blog entry. To be honest with you, I've been operating off of very little sleep, and my workload has been stacking up. That, happening in conjunction with the recent occurrences I've described, has been weighing down on my mental state. With this in mind, please take my claims regarding paranormal activity with a grain of salt. A mix of stress and confusion left me grasping for any possible explanation for what I've gone through. It's entirely irrational to fill in the gaps of my knowledge with random conclusions. I hope you all understand my thought process concerning the theory I typed down earlier. For now, I should remain agnostic until I find more evidence to support a logically sound conclusion. That being said, it seems like the only way to gather more evidence is to continue playing the game. My forum post has still not garnered any responses. The web results for the keywords Township Village still produces zero relevant results. It looks like I'm the only person who's even aware of this game, and exploring the rest of the DS, aside from the camera roll of course, yielded no useful information. I know I said I would take a break from the game for a while I predicted putting my gameplay on hiatus for a bit longer. I just can't push it off anymore. It's becoming increasingly difficult not to think about Mr. O. His image has been branded into my mind ever since he entered my dreams. I can only hope that exploring the rest of the game world will bring me some form of closure. Maybe then I'll be able to repress my ever-growing anxiety. My schoolwork can wait. For now, I need to allocate as much time and energy towards playing the game as possible. I'll return to this entry later today after I finish with my game session.